I'm profoundly deaf. I grew up mostly around the Midlands, and then I came to Cardiff for university. I did a chemistry degree. I've always been very conscious throughout my education. I've been discriminated against as a disabled person, as a deaf child. Um, and when I got to uni, I realised there was the Students' Union. There was an active disabled students campaign going on, and I got involved with that because there were so many barriers to my education on my university course. And I realized it wasn't just me, it was other people as well. So that's how I first got started as an activist. And I have never not been an activist. I think, there's great value in being part of the collective and campaigning for change, making a difference in your own life and in other people's lives as well. So that's what got me started. So I did my PhD. I was elected as the president of the National Union of Students. So I actually took a sabbatical from my PhD to do that year. And then it was a case of no turning back, really. I think, it just really sparked that passion in me to be an activist. And there were so many barriers in physical sciences that just prevented me from developing the career that I wanted to have. So I finished my PhD and then I left. I worked for 4 years as an equality officer for the Wales TUC. And photography had been a hobby. I got made redundant. It was a project funded role. And I thought, well, I'll give myself 6 months as a photographer, see how I get on. And 15 years later, I'm still here. While I was working for the Wales TUC, because it was a policy and campaigns role, I was encouraged to join the NUJ. And so I joined as a dual member. So I was a GMB and NUJ member then. Once I moved into freelancing, I just became a full NUJ member. But it's only really once I fled domestic abuse and spent quite some time sort of in refuge and not being able to work because of PTSD.
Mm.
And it was after that I got involved with the NUJ because I thought, okay, I need to get my career and my life back on track. I need to meet people, network, find work, get some solidarity around me, some support around me. And that is when my life kind of really started again.
And I know it's more than 35 years ago that the NUJ first produced guidelines on disability and representation. How is that going these days? Is it still an issue within the union?
It's a key issue for us. So we have a disabled members council. I represent disabled members on the national executive of the union. Um, and we've been very concerned about the negative rhetoric, very dangerous portrayal of disabled people because it has a real life impact um, in the way that we're treated. We've seen an increase in hate crime, disabled people in poverty and hardship as a result of sanctions and not being able to access the support they need. And we want to make sure that journalists understand these complex and often nuanced issues and that they are reflecting that when they're reporting on disability issues rather than just regurgitating whatever comes from a government statement without giving it proper scrutiny. We've run a series of webinars for members and non-members. We did one earlier this year that explained the UN Convention on the Rights of Disabled People, what was going on in terms of the delegation going out to Geneva to give evidence, what we were hoping journalists would do in scrutinising what the government was saying in their evidence. And we have another webinar coming up in December that will be bringing together those reporting guidelines and having conversation with members and non-members about how disabled people are portrayed in the media and what we need to be doing collectively to challenge those dangerous negative stereotypes and create a much fairer and nuanced way of reporting on disability.
What are some of the barriers that disabled members face in journalism, and how does the union counter those?
It starts from education. There are some students who have health conditions, have fluctuating energy and fatigue levels that mean that a newsroom environment probably isn't going to be the place for them. But there are so many different roles in journalism, that there's so much that disabled people can still do as a journalist. But we've come across the attitude that if you need extra time for your exams, or if you need to start a bit later in the day, then you can't be a journalist, and that is absolutely untrue. And it's really important that we're challenging those stereotypes within education, making sure that the reasonable adjustments are there for students who are studying, but also, more importantly, finding other routes into journalism for those who perhaps, the traditional sort of university route isn't the right thing for them to do. It's really important that we're increasing diversity in journalism, that the diverse kind of life experiences of our audiences are being reflected, that they see themselves represented. So it's really important that we have more disabled people in journalism. What we're often finding is, as with, it's common across different industries, but employers who just don't have a very good understanding of reasonable adjustments and what that means in practice, how they can put the right support in place. There are some employers who are doing really, really good work. The BBC has got a great sort of program of outreach, creating ring-fenced roles for disabled people, active staff networks, really, really good stuff going on there. So there's good practice, but it needs to be more widespread. We have an absolutely brilliant bunch of activists on our Disabled Members Council, different parts of the UK, different impairments, different backgrounds and lived experience. We bring our lived experience to bear, and also what we have learned from other disabled members. We have disabled members meetings, so members can bring their issues to us. We have our webinar series and stuff like that. Sometimes we'll take motions to our delegates meeting, which is our policy-making conference we hold every 2 years. And then that forms a work plan for the Disabled Members Council. And I think it has shown that you can have a disabled leader who is effective, who can do a really good job of representing the union, representing all members. And it shows others that when you've got your access requirements in place, there's no stopping you. And I think it's really important to have those kind of role models in leadership and decision-making roles within our unions.